Hey guys, this is Punisher911, and this is my review on 007 Legends. 007 Legends is a first-person shooter where players control 007 during the events of 5 different James Bond films: Goldfinger, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, License to Kill, Die Another Day, and Moonraker. Now technically it's also 6 films with the Skyfall DLC, but I'll talk about that later on in the review. So let's begin with my usual starting topic, the combat. The combat in 007 Legends is kind of mediocre. It tries to emulate the same style as Call of Duty, but it just feels lackluster, and I think there are a couple of different reasons for it. The first being the weapons aren't all that great, because there are 5 kinds of weapons: pistols, assault rifles, submachine guns, shotguns and sniper rifles. But shotguns and SMGs are far too inaccurate, and there's rarely enough distance between you and your target to make sniper rifles a viable option. So for the most part you'll just be sticking to your starting pistol and whatever assault rifles you have lying around. In addition to the feel of the guns, the AI also doesn't help the combat, because the enemy AI isn't all that good either. Mostly they just run around firing from the hip, or they charge out of cover for absolutely no reason. They don't show much coordination at all, and even if they're standing still, it doesn't seem to affect their accuracy. They're just as accurate standing still as they are when they're charging about firing from the hip. Now on top of that, the game has this weird thing where enemies won't chase you if you leave the area. So there are some sections of the game where you can literally just run past the enemies and there's no danger of them coming up behind you. In fact, at the start of the License to Kill mission, the courtyard that you start in is really obviously broken up into little separate areas. So if you're fighting enemies and you run into another area, they completely vanish from the game. They despawn. If you look at the radar that's on Bond's watch, they actually don't appear. They just vanish from the game entirely. And if you go back, they respawn again. So it just comes across as kind of dodgy. And just to round it all off, the game also has several areas where the enemies just constantly respawn until you push ahead to a certain area. Now I understand the kind of feel the game is trying to go for. It's trying to go for the over-the-top explosive action, but the guns just don't feel satisfying to use, and as I pointed out, most of them are fairly useless outside of the pistols and the assault rifles, and the issues with the AI just make it worse. So unfortunately, the combat just doesn't hit the target that it's aiming for. Now one of the features in this game is the ability to earn experience, which can be then used to purchase upgrades for your weapons, such as different scopes, silencers, extended magazines, that kind of thing. Now while this does sound cool, I feel the upgrades are pretty useless, like the extended mags for example. With some of the guns you might only get 1 or 2 extra bullets, and I think assault rifles only get about 5 extra rounds in a magazine. A couple of other examples of completely pointless upgrades include one that increased the rate of fire on the assault rifles. Now I bought that and went to equip it, but then found out I couldn't equip it on any assault rifle that I had, making it completely useless to me. Now, there was also another one that increased the accuracy on submachine guns, but to be completely honest, I didn't notice that much of a difference. Now, not all the upgrades are bad. The scopes have quite a nice bit of variety. You can get red dot sights, ACOG scopes, thermal scopes, and scopes that have a toggle zoom ability, so they're all pretty cool. And silencers and compensators and whatnot that affect the recoil on the gun, they're also fairly good. Now, in addition to upgrading your guns, the game also states you can use experience to upgrade your gadgets, of which you have 3. The first is the smartphone, which can be used to photograph objectives, hack consoles, or scan fingerprints to access keypads. The second gadget is your watch, which contains a radar, as well as a laser that can destroy security cameras or damage other equipment in order to distract enemies. The third and last gadget is the dart gun, which can fire a tranquilizer to take out enemies silently, or a shock dart, which basically does the same as the tranquilizer, but it covers an area of effect. And lastly, there's a distraction dart, which distracts enemies and makes them all look in a certain direction. But out of those 3 gadgets, only the dart gun can be upgraded, which basically allows you to carry more darts and make the effects a little bit stronger. And lastly, experience can be used to purchase training modules which enhance Bond's abilities, such as giving him more health or being able to reload faster or move silently. So these are pretty cool. But my main problem with all these upgrades is, while there are some uses, you can easily breeze through the entire game without purchasing a single one. Now 007 Legends also features a stealth mechanic. Rather than going in guns blazing, players can try to sneak around enemies or take them all down without sounding the alarm. And this can be pretty useful because whenever the alarm does go off, the amount of enemies in the room just about doubles. But unfortunately, this aspect is kind of bare bones. For starters, if you are spotted by any enemy, they immediately sound the alarm, even if there's no alarm nearby. And there's no opportunity to retreat and wait for your enemies to resume their patrols, because as soon as the alarm goes off, they all know your precise location and it just reverts back to its old high action shoot 'em up style. In addition to that, if an enemy spots a dead or unconscious comrade, that also alerts everyone to your exact location, even if you are nowhere near the body at the time. Now, the game also features a few forced stealth sections. If you're detected, it's an automatic game over. But thankfully, these sections are incredibly easy, so you shouldn't have any trouble getting past them. So, overall, the stealth really needed to be reworked and improved because as it stands, it just feels tacked on, and for a game all about the best secret agent in the world, it just feels like a wasted opportunity. Another feature in 007 Legends is the ability to fight enemies in melee. Now, there are certain sections in the game where you have to fight either a random henchman or one of the main villains in melee combat. In this mode, you have to hit the exposed area on your opponent, or if they have a melee weapon, you have to dodge and parry their attacks and try to disarm them. Now, at first I thought this was a pretty cool feature, but as time went on it became more and more obvious that these sequences are basically advanced QuickTime events, because even though you can dodge or parry, it only works when you get an on-screen prompt, so even if you're getting punched in the head, you can't dodge unless the game tells you to. In addition to that, if you hit the wrong area on your opponent, they block and automatically get a free hit on you. And if you take too long to punch your opponent, they also get a free hit. Now, Bond actually can't block for some reason. They haven't added a block function, so Bond can't defend himself in melee combat. You just have to keep attacking and hope you're faster than they are. And I really think this aspect of the game could have been better, and it would have been really fun if you could actually control Bond's movements, and if you could dodge, block and attack based upon your own instinct and not just when the game gives you an on-screen prompt, because as I said, it basically turns it into an advanced QuickTime event, and that's pretty disappointing. 007 Legends also contains a couple of driving sections. These appear in their License to Kill and Die Another Day missions. Now these sections are really simplistic. You basically just drive forward and dodge enemy attacks until the next cutscene triggers. Not much more to it than that. And I'm not sure these sections are completely necessary because there's only 2 of them and they only take a couple of minutes each. These could have been just completely scrapped from the game and we wouldn't have lost all that much in terms of gameplay. In addition to the single player campaign, 007 Legends contains 10 optional challenge missions. The objectives vary from taking out specific targets without being detected, escaping from an enemy base, or defending an objective from waves of enemies. Now, about half of these missions actually let you play as other characters, such as one mission where you play as Oddjob having to protect Goldfinger's bomber at Fort Knox, or another one where you play as Sanchez fighting CIA operatives at his base. Now, unfortunately, as cool as it sounds playing as other characters, especially the villains, the gameplay experience is hardly unique. Only a couple of them have special abilities. Oddjob has the ability to throw his hat as a weapon, and one of the other missions you play as Jinx, and she has the ability to throw knives. But outside of that, they're all basically just run and gun, just like the rest of the game is. Now, I think being able to play as the villains would have been really cool if they expanded on the concept. maybe if they added a few what if scenarios, what if the villains actually won, and if they allowed the players to experience some alternative storylines from the perspective of the other characters in the Bond universe, especially since the game features some of the original actors providing voices for their respective characters. And I really think Eurocom could have utilised that talent and would have provided a much more unique experience, but sadly we only have a handful of really short missions that don't make the most of the potential on offer. A few other features include things like unlockable content, such as concept art from the game, character biographies, and even images from the production of earlier Bond films, which is fairly cool, but there's not a whole lot on offer here, and I think they could have added a few more extra features. Now, I did want to review the multiplayer for this game, but here's the thing, I had a lot of trouble connecting to the matchmaking server, and the few times it did connect, I couldn't actually find any other players. Even for a simple deathmatch, there was no one around. So for me, the multiplayer doesn't really factor into this review. Maybe if you're on a console, the community might be more active, I don't know. But on the PC at least, I couldn't find anyone. Now, I said I was going to talk about the Skyfall content earlier in the review, so here we go. When the game was released, there were the 5 missions, with the Skyfall mission being a free downloadable update. Now, the PlayStation 3 version of the game got the Skyfall update first, and the Xbox and PC got the update on the 20th of November. Now, to the best of my knowledge, the Xbox version did in fact receive the update on the 20th, but at the time of reviewing, which is the 27th of November, the PC version of 007 Legends still has not received the Skyfall update, which effectively means the game is incomplete, because once you finish the Moonraker mission, the game just immediately jumps to the credits. No ending cutscene or anything like that, it just jumps to the credits and says, oh, the Skyfall update will be released on the 2nd week of November, which it hasn't. Now, there have been no announcements of a delay to the best of my knowledge, nor has there been any explanation as to why the PC version doesn't have the Skyfall content. And given that the developer Eurocom lost a lot of employees recently, it's quite possible that the PC version might not get this content at all. So if for some reason, even after this rather negative review, you are going to pick the game up, get it on the console versions, because you'll actually get the Skyfall mission. On the PC, that is completely up in the air for the moment. So what is the final verdict on 007 Legends? Honestly guys, this game is a complete disappointment. Not just because it's a generic shooter with a 007 paint job, it's because under all the rushed gameplay and unrefined mechanics, there's a slight glimmer of real potential if this game had more development time. If the game had better stealth mechanics, a melee system that didn't feel like an advanced quick-time event, if the combat and AI had been improved, and if, as I said earlier, if it offered those alternative storylines where you play as the villains, it would have made it a really memorable experience, and this game would have been really special. But as it stands, it's just another generic shooter. Save your money, don't bother picking this one up. And if you are really, for some bizarre reason, tempted, as I said, get it on the consoles, because at least then you're guaranteed to get the Skyfall content. So there you go guys, I really don't like doing negative reviews, but sometimes it has to be done. This is Punisher 911, over and out.